like to welcome you to Ms. Hook's 8th grade history class presentation of our Constitutional Convention. And this is my morning group. Thank you for watching our production.
Revolutionary War, the people of America had their independence, and they had the Articles of Confederation. Many felt that that was all they needed.
However, there were those who felt the Articles of Confederation weren't working for the new nation. The states often ignored the federal government when it needed their help.
America needed stronger central government instead of 1787's Grand Convention movement. The purpose was to improve the existing state government.
Today we call it the Constitutional Convention.
Just one moment. I'm Patrick Henry and I have something to say. I signed the Declaration of Independence and I made a speech in which I said, give me liberty or give me death. But don't give me this nonsense by revising the articles. I smell a rat. I refuse to attend the convention.
I'm Thomas Jefferson, and I have too something to say. I am unable to attend the Grand Convention as well. I am a diplomatic duty of France. It's a shame, really. I have an active role in forming the Declaration of Independence. If I was at the convention, I'd probably suggest that we all include something about separation of church and state. As it stands, I'll simply put my thoughts on one subject in a letter to friends.
A number of important men were involved in the Constitution.
Some were sick or had sick family members, others had personal or professional business to handle. And some, like Patrick Henry, did not believe that the Articles of Confederation needed work.
The convention began on May 25th, 1787. 55 delegates were sent to Philadelphia to represent the 13 original states. It was a long, hot summer.
Gentlemen, let me remind you the rules. What happens in these meetings stays within these walls. Don't talk about it, don't even write home about it. The doors in this room stay locked. All the windows will stay shut. And keep an eye on Ben Franklin when he's out and about. He tends to talk too much. No thanks. The chair recognizes James Madison.
Thank you, General. I know that William Jackson is the official secretary to this convention, but I'm taking notes as well. I feel it is my duty, since I was leading advocate for assembling this convention. Besides, I'm not yet married, so I don't have a wife to write home to, as do many of my esteemed colleagues. So I shall be content taking notes every day for as long as it takes.
The chair recognizes James McHenry.
I wish to inform the delegates that I have kept a personal diary for years, and will also be a journal of this convention's proceedings for a long time. And I better not take too much longer. It's hot in here. We have a right to fresh air. I make a motion that we open the windows and let the breeze flow through, otherwise I might have to hurt somebody.
I second that motion.
The chair does not recognize George Mason or Rufus King, and the motion is not carried. Now, let's proceed with the business at hand. Governor Randolph, would you please explain how the Virginian plan works?
And then let me help you with that.
The Virginia plan of the government works like this. You see three main branches of government. This is the executive branch. This branch is in charge of running the government.
there's an area that I'd like to start someday.
Over here, we have the legislative branch. This branch makes the country laws. It will be made up of the House of Representatives and the Senate. The other group will be called Congress.
The federal government will make the laws. I don't agree with that. I believe each state has the right to make its own laws. As a matter of fact, I have prepared a speech on the subject of state rights.
Mr. Martin, we're all well aware of your stance on states' rights. Can you assure us that your speech will not take the better of our 2 days?
Do you have a problem with 2-day-long speeches?
Yes, it's too hot and stuff in here to be forced to sit through long, boring speeches without our rights our individual rights, you know.
You can do what I do, George, sleep through the bonfires.
I agree with Mason. None of you care about meeting this convention. I'm not to make sure no one else has force of government.
My fellow delegates, now is not the time. Please take your seats and allow Governor Randolph to continue.
Thank you, General. Represents the judicial branch, and it's made up of the federal courts and head by the Supreme Court. This branch will make sure that our laws are constitutional, also make our laws properly obeyed.
Excuse me, sir, but I was under the impression that we were called here to fix the articles. What you are offering is an entirely new form of government.
You are very astute, Mr. Sherman. I am in fact advocating the national government.
Outrageous, you were sitting here to revise the articles of confederation, not destroy them.
I, for one, think this exact plan, it will create among the states, and I support William Pierce. What are you doing over there?
While listening to these discussions, I found it useful to occupy myself with sketching the distinguished members of this convention. I'm listening.
Much time was spent arguing for and against a new national government. Many fears surfaced. Who exactly was going to run the government? Would it be run like monarchy? On the other hand, would the common people be given too much power? There were other concerns.
What about other small states? I represent Massachusetts. Will the nation governor be as interested in our wishes as it is in the wishes of the larger states? Or will it be ignored?
Connecticut shares Mr. King's concerns.
The state of Delaware also supports fair representation of the small states.
Governor, you've given us all something to think about. I believe your Virginian plan has merit. Let us all think about this a little longer.
Although the former of the Constitution took great pains to avoid leaking information to the public, they couldn't stop rumors from spreading.
Harriet, did you see Dr. Franklin arrive at the convention?
No, why?
He was carrying in a Chinese sit-in chair by 4 prisoners from jail. Who does he think he is? The King of Siam?
You don't understand because you're still young, Elizabeth and Harriet. Dr. Franklin is 81 years old. Carriage riders are painful to old bones. Have you heard the latest gossip?
I don't think so. What is it?
The convention is going to ask the second son of King George III to become King of America.
No.
Yes.
You're kidding.
No.
What they need in that convention is some founding mothers to set those founding fathers straight.
How could they dream of starting another monarchy after what we went through with King George?
It's a terrible shame, and that's the truth.
The Constitutional Convention continued. The delegates resumed their discussions. Governor Randolph assured them that the 3 separate branches of government would share power equally. One could not overpower the others.
This was followed the system of checks and balances.
Each branch was balanced by the other two. Each branch could check the power of the other side. Branches are designed to listen to the resulting things.
For instance, Congress has the power to enact laws.
The president has the power to veto or reject laws.
Other Congress can't overturn veto if the members vote to do so. Speaking of president, the delegates have decided that the country should be led by one president. The president with a vice president who can take over if the president is somehow unable to serve. They must decide how to choose the president, whether to pay the president or how long he can hold the office.
I make a motion that the President of the United States serve without pay. After all, General Washington led our army for 8 years without a salary. Service to our country should be based on patriotism.
You can't count on patriotism alone to draw the right man to the office. Some truly capable candidates couldn't afford to work without pay.
I am concerned about our elected president. We need to set up an electoral college to select our president. Many of our citizens live too far away to travel and participate in this election.
I agree with Mr. Barely. I would be willing to serve on a community to work out this solution to our election.
I promise that our president serves a long-term phrase of a long term. If we go for short terms for the office of this president, we'll have a lot of executive presidents wandering around like ghosts gumming up the work.
I understand your concern, Alexander. However, you wouldn't want to be stuck with a bad president. That would be like being stuck with a bad king.
This has been a productive meeting so far. The Assembly of Delegates has agreed to pay the President a salary from the U.S. Treasury. He will serve a sum of just 4 years. If necessary, he can be removed from office by being impeached by Congress. I want to appoint a committee to look into the concerns about the election of our President. Mr. Gurley and Mr. Gilman, would you serve on this committee?
We need to talk about the state's rights.
Sherman is right. If smaller states can at least have an equal vote in the Senate, why bother being a part of this new country?
I'd like to propose the Connecticut Compromise. With my plan, votes in the House of Representatives would be based on the number of people living in the state, but the votes in the Senate would be equal to the no matter the size of the state. Say state elects 2 senators.
I don't like that at all. Larger states should have more representation.
I think the Connecticut Compromise is a good idea. I could support that.
I would like to introduce the New Jersey plan. It has a unicameral legislature which has equal representation for all states. This legislature would appoint the executive branch, which would in turn appoint the judicial branch.
That plan is too complicated. How is it different from a king and a parliament?
I would be happy to chair a committee to work out the details of setting the number of representatives each state should have.
I tell you that the Connecticut Compromise is a bad idea.
I'm tired of sitting here and listening to you delegates bicker back and forth about this issue of representation. I have cotton in my fields in Georgia that needs to be tended. This convention has overstepped its authority and is dangerous to the liberties of its people. I'm leaving.
Gentlemen, we we have been sent to this convention to come up with a workable plan of government for this country. Our state citizens are depending on us.
What about individual rights? We talk of federal rights. What about the rights of the people? I fear they are going to be trampled.
Individual rights is not the only problem. I have concern about the slave trade in the South. I will support the strong central government, but I do not want that to have any effect on my livelihood, which depends on the slaves. I have not addressed this concern yet.
I agree with Mr. Rutledge. The commerce in the South is dependent on our slave labor. We need to address this issue now.
Gentlemen, I have a suggestion to make. Before we come to blows, let's ask a minister to come here and teach session of prayer.
We can't do that. If I would go out that we need to pray, the people would believe our convention was in dirt trouble.
It is in dire trouble.
It took a lot of work, but finally the delegates realized that a compromise was necessary to allow a new plan of government to work for all the people of the United States.
You've done it. We have a government plan.
The Constitution
Mr. Washington, I have been watching these proceedings for be proud to sign the name on this document.
Mr. Washington, I cannot sign this declaration, this Constitution. I am concerned that it does not allow me to provide adequate protection in the individual rights of our citizens.
We can work out a bill of rights to address your concerns after the Constitution has been read.
I fear it will never happen.
Gentlemen, let us sign this document.
The average age of the is
accordance here and for the most influential notes. I'm Mary Hanson, Edmund Randolph, Governor Lawrence, and Jim Franklin were in the business. The only delegate was Benjamin Franklin. He admitted that the Constitution was not perfect, but neither was it. The new Constitution would still need to be voted on by delegates from each state. That would occur later. The first 10 amendments to the U.S. Constitution, known as the Bill of Rights, were ratified in 1791. This even must be pleased by George Madison in Urban Georgia. They had not signed the Constitution because to them it did not seem to protect individual rights. Even more significant was the continental political experience of the framers. 8 signed the Declaration of Independence, 25 served in the Continental Congress, 15 helped draft the new state constitutions, and 40 served in the Confederation Congress between 1783 and 1787. Now we present to you the preamble of the United States Constitution.
The people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. Do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America.
After the Revolutionary War, the people of America had their independence and they had the Articles of Confederation. Many felt that was all that they needed.
However, there are those who felt that Articles of Confederation weren't working for the new nation. The states often ignored their federal governments when it needed their help.
America needed a stronger central government, and so in 1787 a grand convention was organized. The purpose was to improve the existing form of government.
Today we call it the Constitutional Convention.
Just one moment. I'm Patrick Henry and I have something to say. I signed the Declaration of Independence and I made a speech in which I said, give me liberty or give me death. But don't give me this nonsense about revising the Articles of Confederation. I smell a rat. I refuse to attend the convention.
I'm Thomas Jefferson and I too have something to say. I'm unable to attend the Grand Convention as well. I'm on diplomatic duty in France. It's a shame really. I had an active role in forming the Declaration of Independence. If I was at the convention, I'd probably suggest that we include something about separation of church and state. As it stands, I'll simply put my thoughts on that subject in letters to friends.
A number of important men were involved in the convention.
Some were sick and had sick family members. Others had personal and professional illnesses.
And some, like Patrick Henry, didn't believe that the Articles of Confederation would be worked.
The convention began on May 25th, 1787. 55 delegates were sent to Philadelphia to represent the 13 original states. It was a long, hot summer.
Gentlemen, let me remind you of these rules. What happens in these meetings stays within these walls. Don't talk about it. Don't even write home about it. The doors in this room stay locked, and the windows will stay shut. And keep an eye on Ben Franklin when he's out and about. He talks too much. No offense. The chair recognizes James Madison.
Thank you, General Washington. I know that William Jackson is the official secretary of this convention, but I am also taking notes as well. I feel it is my duty since I am a leading advocate for assembling this convention. Besides, I'm not yet married, so I do not feel like to write you, as many of my esteemed colleagues. So I shall be content to take notes every day for as long as it takes.
The chair recognizes Jane Kennedy.
I wish to inform the delegates that I have kept a personal diary of the meeting and will also keep
This better not take too much longer. It's hot in here. You're right for fresh air. I make a motion that we open the windows and let a breeze flow through. Otherwise, I might have to hurt somebody.
I second that motion.
The chair does not recognize George Mason or Rufus King. And the motion is not carried. Now let's proceed with the business at hand. Governor Randolph, would you please explain again how the Virginia plan works?
Edmund, let me help you with that. We the people definitely support this plan, gentlemen.
The Virginia plan for this government works like this. You see the three main branches of government. This is the executive branch. This is in charge of running the government.
There's where I'd like to say something.
Over here, we have the legislative branch. This branch makes the country's laws. It will be made up of the House of Representatives and the Senate. Together, they will be called Congress.
The federal government makes the laws. I don't agree with that. I believe each state has the right to make its own laws. As a matter of fact, I have prepared a speech on the subject of the state's rights.
Mr. Martin, we're well aware of your stance on states' rights. Can you assure us that your speech will not take up the better part of 2 days?
Do you have a problem with 2-day-long speeches?
Yes, it's too hot and stuffy in here to be forced to sit through long and boring speeches. We have our individual rights here now.
You can do what I do, George. Sleep through the boring parts.
I agree with Mr. Mason. None of you care about our state's rights. I'm leaving this convention, going back to Maryland to make sure no one votes to accept this farce of the government.
My fellow delegates, now is not the time. Please take your seats and allow Governor Randolph to continue.
Thank you, Chairman. This represents the judicial branch. It will be made up of federal courts and headed by a Supreme Court. This branch will make sure that our laws are constitutional, but it will also make sure our laws are properly obeyed.
Excuse me, sir, but I was under the impression that we were called here to fix the problems with the Articles of Confederation. What you seem to be offering is an entirely new thing of government.
You're very astute, Mr. Chairman. I'm in fact advocating a national government.
Outrageous. We were sitting here to revive the articles, not destroy them.
I, for one, think this is an excellent plan. It will create unity among the states, and I support it. William Pierce, what are you doing over there?
While listening to these discussions, I find it useful to occupy myself while sketching in the distinguished members of this convention. I'm listening.
Much time was spent arguing for and against a new national government. Many fears surfaced. Who exactly was going to run the government? Would it be run like a monarchy? On the other hand, would the common people be given too much power? Then there were other concerns.
What about the small states? I represent Massachusetts. Will a national government be as interested in our wishes as it is in the wishes of the larger states, or will we be ignored?
Connecticut shares Mr. King's concern.
The state of Delaware also supports the representation of the small states.
Governor, you've been given us all something to think about. I believe your Virginia plan is buried. Let us think about this a little longer.
Although the framers of the Constitution took great pains to avoid leaking the information to the public, they couldn't stop rumors from spreading.
Harriet, did you see Dr. Franklin when he arrived at the convention?
No, why?
He was carried in a Chinese sit-in chair by 4 prisoners from jail. Who does he think he is, the king of Siam?
You don't understand because you're still young, Elizabeth and Harriet. Dr. Franklin is 81 years old.
Hairdryers are painful to old bones. Have you heard the latest gossip?
I don't think so. What is it?
The convention is going to ask the second son of King George III to become King of America.
No.
Okay.
Yes.
You're kidding.
You're kidding. No.
What they need in that convention is some founding mothers to set those founding fathers straight.
How can they dream of starting a new monarchy after what we went through with King George?
It's a terrible shame, and that's the truth.
The Constitutional Convention continued. Delegates resumed their discussions. Governor Randolph assured the men that the three separate branches of government would share power equally. One could not overpower the others.
This was called checks and balances. Each branch was balanced by up the other two. Each branch would check the power of the others by granting or denying permission to be served.
For instance, Congress has the power to enact laws.
The president has the power to veto or reject laws.
However, Congress can overturn a veto if enough members vote to do so.
Speaking of presidents, the delegates have decided that the country should be led by one person, a president, with a vice president who can take over if the president is somehow unable to serve.
Now they must decide how to choose a president, whether to pay the president and how long he can hold office.
I make a motion that the President of the United States should serve without pay. After all, General Washington served our country 8 years without pay. I serve to our country to be based on patriotism.
You can't count on patriotism alone to draw the right man to office. Some truly capable candidates couldn't afford to work without pay.
I am concerned about the electing of our president. We need to set up an electoral college to select our president. Many of our citizens live too far away to travel and participate in this election.
I agree with Mr. Burley. I would be willing to serve on a committee to work out this solution for our election.
I propose that our president serve a long term, perhaps a lifelong term. If we go for short terms in the office of president, we'll have a lot of ex-presidents wandering around like ghosts, gumming up the works.
I understand your concern, Alexander. However, I wouldn't want to be stuck with a bad president. That would be like stuck with a bad king.
This has been a productive meeting so far. The Assembly of Delegates has agreed to pay the President a salary from the U.S. Treasury. He will serve terms of just 4 years. If necessary, he can be removed from office by being impeached by Congress. I want to appoint a committee to look into the concerns about the election of our President. Mr. Brearley and Mr. Gilman, would you serve on this committee?
We need to talk about states' rights.
Sherman is right. Small states can't at least have an equal vote in the Senate. Why bother being part of this new country?
I'd like to propose the Connecticut Compromise. With my plan, votes in the House of Representatives would be based on the number of people living in the state. But votes in the Senate would be equal no matter the size of the state. Say, every state elects 2 senators.
I don't like that at all. Every larger state should have more representation.
I think the Connecticut Compromise is a good idea. I can support that.
I would like to introduce the New Jersey plan. It has a unicameral legislature which has equal representation in all states. This legislature would appoint the executive branch, and which would in turn appoint the judicial branch.
That plan is too complicated. How is it different from a king of parliament?
I would be happy to chair a committee to work out the details of saying the number of representatives each state would have.
I tell you that the Connecticut Compromise is a bad idea.
I'm tired of sitting here and listening to you delegates bicker back and forth about issues of representation. I have taught in my fields back in Georgia that needs tending.
This convention has overstepped its authority and is dangerous to the liberties of its people. I'm leaving.
Gentlemen, we have been sent to this commission to come up with a workable plan of government for our country. Our state citizens are depending on us.
But what about individual rights? You talk about federal rights. What about the rights of the people? I fear they are going to be trampled.
Individual rights are not only the problem. I have a concern about the slave trade in the South. I will support the strong central government, but I do not want that to have any effect on my livelihood, which depends on the slaves. We have not just addressed this concern yet.
I agree with Mr. Rutledge. The commerce in the South is dependent on our slave labor. We need to address this issue now.
Gentlemen, I have a suggestion to make. We need to, before we come to blows, let's ask the minister to come in, open each session with a prayer.
We can't do that. If word got out that we needed prayer, the people would believe our convention was in dire trouble.
It is in dire trouble.
It took a lot of work, but finally the delegates realized that compromise was necessary to allow our new plan of government to work for all the people of the United States.
We have done it. We have a government plan.
The Constitution was ready for signing. Some of the delegates were still not happy with the final document.
Mr. Washington, I have been watching these proceedings and will be proud to sign my name on this document.
Mr. Washington, I do not sign this Constitution. I am concerned that it does not provide adequate protection for the individual rights of our citizens.
We can work on adding a Bill of Rights to address your concerns after the Constitution has been ratified.
I fear it will never happen.
Gentlemen, let us sign this document.
The 39 of the Constitutional Convention delegates signed the U.S. Constitution on September 17, 1787, and their work was finished. The average age of the delegates was 42, and four of the most influential delegates, Alexander Hamilton, Edmund Randolph, Gouverneur Morris, and James Madison, were in their 30s. The oldest delegate was 81, Benjamin Franklin. He admitted that the Constitution was not perfect, but then neither was he.
The new Constitution would still need to be voted on by delegates from each state. That would occur later. The first 10 amendments to the U.S. Constitution, known as the Bill of Rights, were ratified in 1791. This even must have pleased George Mason and Elbridge Gerry. They had not signed a Constitution because to them it did not seem to protect their individual rights.
Even more significant was the constant political experience of the framers. 8 signed the Declaration of Independence, 25 states in the Constitution of Congress, 15 helped draft the new state constitutions, and 30 served in the Confederation Congress between 1783 and 1787. Now we present to you the preamble of the United States Constitution.
The United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our prosperity, do ordain and establish the Constitution for the United States of America.